Well, I think Sussmann lied. I think it's material. Whether a D.C. jury will convict him, only the good Lord knows. But I think the big takeaway here was what we learned a few days back when we learned that Secretary Clinton told Sussmann to take false information to the press that was also then taken to the FBI. I mean, step back and think about this. This is the former Secretary of State. This is the former First Lady. This is the former Senator, United States Senator from the state of New York, and candidate for one of the major parties for President of the United States. And she's encouraging a false narrative to be taken to the press. And of course, it was also taken to the FBI. I mean, I think that is huge. And so much so that the former Attorney General called it seditious. So, and again, you don't have to take my word for that. This is her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, under oath in a court of law making that statement. So that's the big takeaway here. We'll see what the jury does today or tomorrow whenever they reach a decision.
Yeah, and those are important things to point out, because as I laid out, an acquittal here could, bring into question Durham's entire legality in this. But so much has been unearthed along the way that I'm not sure legally that you can just wipe it away at this point. But here's an expert. Constitutional law attorney Jonathan Turley, in a new op-ed, calls it a friends with benefits situation, arguing the trial is a black eye for the FBI. Quote, the trial confirmed what many have long alleged about how top officials eagerly accepted any Russia collusion claim involving former President Trump's 2016 campaign. Special counsel John Durham's investigation is an indictment of a department and a bureau which, once again, appeared willfully blind as they were played by Hillary Clinton's campaign. Congressman.
Yeah, no, I think Professor Turley is getting at a point we've talked about before. How did the FBI not know? I mean, Sussmann emails Jim Baker, not anyone at the FBI, the chief counsel at the FBI. He emails him the night before. Jim Baker obviously knew him because the email didn't say, Mr. Chief Counsel. It said, Jim, I'm coming to see you tomorrow with some information. How did they not know this wasn't coming from the Clinton campaign? Baker knew Sussmann. He knew Sussmann was the campaign lawyer for the Clinton campaign. How did they not know? And never forget, when we deposed Jim Comey in 2018, he told us in that transcribed interview that up until the point he got fired, which had been 10 months of this whole Russia investigation, up until that point, he said, we didn't know if we had anything. We still didn't know if we had anything. That tells you they from the get-go that this was baloney, but they ran with it because they wanted to run with it. They were out to get President Trump.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking how critical the idea of resource and origin of material. I mean, it is so for journalists. It is so on Capitol Hill with hearings that you give. It is so for the Lottery Commission to make sure you have the right ticket. I mean, resource and knowing where things come from is so basic, I would think. The January 6th committee. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the fundamentals were, the Clinton campaign paid Perkins Coie, who hired Fusion GPS, who hired Christopher Steele, and it was lie after lie after lie after lie. And they peddled it to the media and they peddled it to the FBI and they got this whole big thing. And the worst thing of all was the 3 years they put the country through. The 3 years that, again, Donald Trump got so much accomplished for our nation, but imagine what he could have done, what else he could have got done for the United States, for the American people, but for this ridiculous effort that the Democrats started with a lie, started with Secretary Clinton.
That's really fascinating, too, because I pointed to the taxpayer money, but it's also the time and what needed to get done in between then and now. All right, Congressman, I'm going to move to this. The January 6th committee holds its very first hearing next week, and you, in fact, are one of the 5 sitting House Republicans subpoenaed in that probe, but have signaled in an op-ed you're very unlikely to cooperate. The Hill makes this point. Bucking the committee entirely risks contempt. The panel and full House have already referred charges for 4 others who defied their subpoenas, and a suit to challenge the committee's authority to issue the subpoenas would be a lengthy and expensive proposition. There's no guarantee for success, and it could solidify the rights of a panel to subpoena their lawmakers. What's your take on that? And the expensive part, too, not just with money, but again, time.
Yeah, I mean, my take on this committee has been, I think, the take of the American people. It's political. It is. I mean, you think back to when Adam Schiff ran the impeachment committee. This is even worse because at least when Schiff was doing the secret hearings in the bunker in the basement of the Capitol, at least some of us got to be in there and see what was going on so that we could control some of the crazy leaks they were doing and tell the truth to the American people. In this situation, they get to leak things. They get to lie about things. They lied about me. They lied about a text message I had forwarded to the White House chief of staff, so much so that the committee had to come out and say we regret the error, which is government speak for we got caught lying. So this, I think the American people see this for what it is. We'll see what their first hearing brings. My guess it'll be more of the same.
So
the American people, though, understand it for what it is.
So it's conceivable that they won't back off of this and that the five of you will be caught in the crosshairs of all of those flying subpoenas and everything. Is there anything, Congressman, that gets you to the point where you say, I'll go sit with this committee?
Well, we sent our letter. We outlined our concerns. Some of them were just what I talked about, the leaks, the lies, and everything else. We've outlined that. And then there's just sort of this constitutional issue. And frankly, is this the way they want to go forward? Do you want one party being able to subpoena the other party, the majority party being able to subpoena the minority party, and play the politics that I think they're playing here? So we'll see. We submitted our letter to them last week. This was the second letter we've sent to them. They yet to respond to the first one we sent clear back in January, where we laid out our concerns. And then the next thing you know, they issue a subpoena. So we responded again with a letter. We'll see what their response is.
And around we go. If they're serious, they respond, and then you're actually having a conversation. Right now, it's just running around. Always great to have you in focus.